Welcome to the TV Book Club. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Lori.
And today we're going over Seinfeld, Season 7, Episode 6, The Soup Nazi. All right, so first off, what'd you think about the episode?
I thought it was not as good and funny as I remembered it being.
I disagree and agree.
I mean, it's not a bad episode by any means. I don't think it's terrible. Maybe I had it hyped up because I feel like it's one of those episodes that you remember as being really funny. And then when I got there, it was just an okay episode. Like I would have said, that's a good episode, but not as funny as I remembered it being.
I'll agree with that. But it was also just like moments and quotes that I remember were like all from this episode.
See, I didn't find one quote that stood out to me. There's none of those, these pretzels are making me thirsty moments.
Well, we'll go right into my quotes. The two that, obviously, there's the one, no soup for you.
Well, right.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
There's also the schmoopy stuff, but that's not really a quote. That was just a moment that I remembered.
That's my worst moment, is the schmoopy stuff.
I'll get into best moment, worst moment about that in a minute. But most memorable quote from the episode has got to be when Newman comes out and goes, "Jambalaya." Because for whatever reason, that quote is just one that anytime I have jambalaya, I say that. Knowing
you say
that
the name of the jambalaya.
I say it just like
jambalaya.
Newman did, and I think of Newman every time.
I guess I don't eat jambalaya.
I don't eat jambalaya that often.
Maybe that's why it doesn't
anytime,
resonate with
and
me.
I forgot that was from this episode because jambalaya is not a soup.
Yeah, but he had all kinds of things that weren't traditional soups.
That's true. But I didn't place that quote with this episode until he said it, and then I was like, oh, that's from the Soup Nazi episode. All right, so now, best moment, worst moment. Do you have a best moment?
I want to start with the worst moment if I
Okay,
can.
worst moment.
Okay, so worst moment was just the starting with the schmoopy stuff. It's so gross, and it was so like, blah. It wasn't even like funny, blah. It was like, blah. And then I had like two worst was Elaine, when she's like being so loud and annoying in this episode, it's stressful that they would even be willing to take her. Right. Because she at the beginning is like, I'm not going to follow the rules and they're going to serve me. I wouldn't go with her. If you were just blatantly being like, I'm not going to do what I'm supposed to do.
I would be like, you go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll wait a few people.
Nope, I'm not standing near you.
Which I'm surprised that Jerry didn't do. I'm surprised he wasn't like, why don't you go ahead, and waited, which I guess they got into then later with the girlfriend, who he was just like, I don't know you.
Yeah, but he was letting her kiss on him in the line.
He was playing it fast and loose with the rules, and he almost lost his soup. So I'll start with, I initially had the schmoopy thing as my best moment. As soon as it happened, I was like, oh, this has got to be the best moment because this is the thing I remember the most from the episode. Also, same as the jambalaya, didn't think that it was from this episode, so it was a little bit of a surprise. By the end of the episode, the baby talk went to worst moment.
Oh, see, my best moment is when George does the baby voicing for Susan. That's the only moment I laughed out loud because Susan immediately loves it. And I was like, yes, not all, 90% of women are the same. We're going to like it when we're like, even though we would be like, that's so gross. But all of a sudden you're like, what do you want, baby? Like women would be like, what? Oh my gosh.
My annoyance with it moved from, oh, this is the best moment, to George's opinion on it. By the end of the episode, I was like, oh, I cannot listen to it anymore.
Oh, I immediately hated it. It was gross, but it was hilarious when George did it and Susan loved it, and now he's stuck having to do it. It was that.
So we had a reverse we crossed paths, like
Yeah,
they say on Always
and then
Sunny.
switched.
We crossed paths there.
Well, it was funny because they do the birdie thing, the little like meme where it's like, I'll take care of you, birdie.
Yeah.
And all the women are like, oh, I want my husband to treat me like this. That was like what I saw when George did that. And
Yeah.
Susan was like, I love it.
After that move to my worst moment, I think the best moment ended up becoming the guys who steal the armoire and Kramer's reaction to them. Like
They're not the ones that beat Kramer up in the one episode, are they? Is that a different set of them, or is it the same two guys?
I think it might be the same two guys.
That's what that was the question I had. And it's been a while since I've seen that episode, so I wasn't sure.
But I think this came first, because I don't think they've got any past together at this point.
Okay, and then later they beat him up.
Right.
Because I thought that they looked familiar, like they'd been in a different episode.
So funny that like they didn't even really do anything threatening.
Well, that's what I said. I was like,
they just were
why are
implying
they
that they
so
might.
scared of them? Like he's like acting like he's like, don't do it. And they're like, oh, you're not gonna let us do it or whatever, or you can't stop us. I don't know, whatever they said, whatever not threatening line that was very average. I was like, they haven't even pulled a pocket knife, threatened to fight you. You could still try to like throat punch one of them. And at the end, when Jerry got scared too,
Yeah.
when he was just like, you talking to me or was you talking to him? I was like,
No, we
just
were just
throat
talking to
punch
each
the
other.
both of them really fast and like get that armoire back.
It moved to my best moment just because they were like so not tough in what they were saying either.
Not
they were
at
just
all.
like,
I mean, was that the joke that they weren't tough and
right,
scary?
they were like just kind of rude, and that
Yeah.
was enough for Kramer to be like,
Yeah, I was like, Kramer was not a good person to watch your stuff if he is not even gonna try.
But and another moment from the show that I did not remember was from this episode. So, but that, I think that's my best moment, and then the worst moment is the baby talk. Character development, interactions between people. I think we saw a lot of Seinfeld on this. I don't. There was nothing.
Well,
that stood
so
out.
mine, I did. So I talked about Elaine being annoying, but I felt they made her more annoying than usual on this one, because she's not always just that bad, willing to offend everyone. And I felt this one they really amped it up.
Well, she came in hot. Like she was immediately just like not dealing with the rules of the establishment, which I will say did make me think it was something you might do. If I was like, all right, you got to follow all of these rules exactly. This is how you do it. And you would be like,
That's only
not
if you
doing
were
it.
in charge. Like, if you were in charge of the store, then I wouldn't do it. But if
Right.
it was someone that we didn't know, I'm not going to go in and just immediately be offensive and cause
Right.
people not
Yeah,
to be able
not-
to get their food.
yeah, not
like, I would
her
not
type
do
of
that.
attitude, but-
That was, and like laying on the counter and being
Right.
like, Lima being, blah. I don't know. I just felt like it was a little much even
Right.
for her.
It like she came in hot. Like she was immediately like that.
Yeah, it was just more than usual.
Yeah, usually it's like a ramp up. Like she'd go the first time and she'd be the one to not get the bread. And then she'd start acting like that because she didn't get bread the first time.
Yeah, and George
she-
would have been that they overcharged him or something.
which-
they charged him for the bread and he didn't get it. Or
Though-
I don't know.
It was still a funny moment with him being like, I didn't get any bread.
No, I mean, but that's still kind of Georgish because
Right,
he
it's
wanted
still-
free stuff.
Right. He didn't get his free thing. And
Oh, but then when he later went, oh, Brett, mwah, and he was like, you're pushing your luck, little man. I was like, yeah, this is, I was
Yeah.
just stressed for all of them. So I wouldn't be like that because I was stressed they couldn't follow the rules.
Right. Except for Jerry until he brought his girlfriend.
I mean,
He was on. He had the rules down.
I feel like in this situation, I am a rule follower because I'm not trying to make somebody who serves me mad. I would never, if anybody's touching my food,
Right.
I am not making them
Yeah,
mad.
true.
Not at all.
That's true.
Like, I'm going to do whatever weird thing they say to get my food
Yeah.
and it not be tampered with.
I thought it was funny that Banya came up and he was
Oh.
like, I'm not letting you cut.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Why not? He's like, I'm not risking the soup. And then he was just like, All right, fair enough. And he walked away. It was, of all the times, normally you can't get rid of him, but he was like, not for the soup.
That's funny. My interaction I did have, I don't know why they were so scared of the guys. Not that funny. That was my note. Like, it just wasn't that funny to me. My other note that I have on interactions, but I moved it down to like trivia, is that when the soup Nazi moves, he moves to Argentina, which is where the Nazis went in Germany.
Yeah, that was, I think, the
funny little.
Yeah, I think that's a good Easter egg that you caught. I did not catch that, but now that you say it, yeah, I think.
Yeah, it was such a like Newman just says it at the end, and so.
Right. Now, do you want to hear some trivia I found about this?
Sure.
All right, so we'll get two that aren't that interesting, and then I'll finish with the most interesting of the trivia. I don't know why I call this trivia. This is more like facts, but it's listed under the trivia section of places. So anyway, they said one summer, the writing staff and Jerry Seinfeld and a couple people were out hitting baseballs in the parking lot. This is like before or while in pre-production for the season. And there were like no cars in the parking lot. And they managed to hit one and break through the window. And it ended up being the actress who played Sheila in this episode, the girlfriend. Seinfeld did pay for the damages to the car, but ironically, while doing post-production for the season, he broke her windshield.
And she hadn't been cast yet?
I don't, well, at that point, probably not. Or
so
maybe that's why
she got cast. She was like, no, I'm getting into something now that you've broken my window. Don't pay for it. Pay for it by hiring me.
If she was either probably there for her audition, or she was there for like the pre-production involving the episode. So it didn't say if she had already been cast, but that might be why she was cast. If there's another episode that Banya appears in called The Soup, and in that episode he refers to the soup as the best, just like he does in this episode. Not as interesting of a point, but
no, yeah, that's pretty basic.
Now
it's reaching.
Here's the most interesting trivia. You probably already know that the soup kitchen was based on a real place in New York.
I mean, I assumed they had places like that, but I didn't know it was like one specific place.
It was, nobody on the crew apparently had really been to the place more than like once. And
it, like, did it legitimately have an owner that was like that? Or it was just a place that sold only soup?
It was a place that sold soup, and they were very strict on the rules. But he wasn't really that bad. And he has gone on record saying that basically the show ruined his livelihood, and he absolutely hates Seinfeld, the show. You're not allowed, that's one of the rules now in the place, or at the time in the place, was absolutely zero reference to Seinfeld, or you don't get your soup.
And then he yells, "No soup for you," and then they love it even more.
Well, apparently he doesn't yell that at people. They just refuse service. But Seinfeld offered an apology and then went into the restaurant, and the guy did
refuse service.
He said, "No soup for you," and all references and all cast members are forbidden from his restaurant. I always thought it was the other way around, but apparently he didn't like it. Made him look bad, and so he didn't like it. But
that seems crazy because it feels like he could have leaned in a little harder, and people would have wanted to go as a tourist attraction.
That's what I heard.
It seems like it could have made his business even more popular.
That's what I had heard, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently he is not happy. don't know if the place still exists or not. I didn't look that up. Just saw this in the trivia. But there were actually multiple, like he's talked about it on interviews and stuff. He's not happy with it. Mostly because I think his biggest offense was that they portrayed him to be a bad guy, even though Kramer actually portrays him to be a pretty good guy.
And he talks to Kramer,
Right.
and he's nice, and he gives the armoire.
And I feel like...
And he says you're misunderstood.
Right. And by the end of it, I feel like he's actually in a pretty good light, at least in my opinion. He's just very focused on the rules. But...
Yeah, I'm surprised you thought I'd be a rule breaker, because I identified more with him than like Elaine at all.
I didn't think in
food terms.
Right.
You just thought like if you said to do it.
Right.
Like, yeah, because
if
I'm
I
not
was
going to
like,
listen.
Here are the specific rules that you have to follow when you go into this establishment.
Well,
you would immediately
if
be
you were like, yeah.
Lima beans.
Well, not for food. Not
because
for
it's
food. Yeah.
I didn't think about the aspect.
Like if you were like, in order to play this game,
right.
we have to play by these rules. I'd be like, I think I won't read them.
Yeah. So what did you rate? How do you rate it out of 5?
Oh, I didn't rate it.
How many cups?
I was still stuck on the fact that I thought there were like no memorable quotes. I didn't even think about "no soup for you" being a quote.
Yeah, I would say
so
that is the most. memorable
and then
quote.
I was like none in all caps with an exclamation point. I rate it like, honestly, like a 3.5, because it stresses me out really hard how no one can follow the rules. I'm like, I have like this, like, I'm just stressed during the episode.
I'll give it a 4. Only because I agree with what you said at the beginning. It wasn't really as funny as I remembered. There were funny parts.
No, it wasn't as funny as I remembered either.
But I think there are funnier overall episodes of
For
Seinfeld.
sure. Yeah, because I only got one laugh out loud moment, and that was George baby talking.
I can't say it's a bad episode. I got to give it at least a 4.
No, it was decent.
It was a good
definitely,
episode.
It wasn't like I want to turn it off.
Right.
It just wasn't.
There
it
weren't
obviously
as
wasn't my
many-
favorite.
Right. There just weren't as many funny parts as there were a lot of good moments, but
And although it has the iconic "no soup for you" that I kind of forgot was even a quote, it doesn't have all those little zingers that I think I was looking for, the like little hidden zinger moments.
Yeah, I think so. What, we give it a 7.5? I think that's fair. Especially when you consider that there are definitely some that are just the episode start to finish is better overall. There's definitely some iconic stuff and some funny jokes, and I think things that carry over some more into other episodes.
It somehow
I think 7.5 is fair.
It's a memorable
Cups of
one,
soup.
but not necessarily the funniest one. I think that's a good way.
I think, it's very memorable. It's a great episode. It's just not the funniest episode. So 7.5 cups of soup of crab bisque specifically, out of 10. And so next week's episode, we're going to be watching Golden Girls. Golden Girls, the flu attack, which we were supposed to do this week. Plans changed. So have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.